Major League Quadball has seen a lot of teams throughout its 10-year history, and today I thought it'd be fun to go through 3 expansion concepts for all of Major League Quadball. Hello and welcome to Snapshot, your place for all news, history, and just talking about quadball. My name is Jackson, and there have been a grand total of 22 teams that have played throughout the history of Major League Quadball, and today we're going to look at some expansion concepts that get us up to numbers even past that. I've got 3 concepts for us to look at today. The first one will be a small-scale expansion, nothing too crazy. Secondly, we'll look at creating a new division, or rather bringing back an old one. And the last expansion concept we'll look at will be a league-wide major expansion that mirrors other professional sports leagues in terms of how many teams play in it. Okay, so let's jump right into the first of our 3 expansion concepts. This first one is going to be small-scale, just 1 team added to each of the 3 divisions, bringing us to 6 teams in each of the 3, and a total of an 18-team league. So here's how the league looks right now. There's 5 teams in each of the 3 divisions, North, South, and East. And here's how the league would look if I added a team to each division. Also note that some of the logos are going to be old MLQ logos that I'm bringing back just for this project, and some of them are going to be random sports teams logos just as placeholders because it's the cities that we're really emphasizing here. So let's take a look at our first division, that being the South. I would have Kansas City, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and New Orleans, and I'd have them be joined by Oklahoma, specifically Oklahoma City. There's currently a college team in Oklahoma, that being Oklahoma State. I've got their logo on here just as a placeholder. So maybe if that scene grew a little bit more, then they'd be able to support a team. But I think 6 teams in the South, with the addition of Oklahoma State, would bridge the gap nice between Texas and Kansas. Moving on to the North, I would bring back the Indianapolis Intensity. Indianapolis used to play in Major League Quadball before they relocated to Chicago, becoming the Chicago Prowl. Indianapolis actually made the finals twice, losing both times, but they did make the finals a couple of times. So they're a historic franchise in MLQ, and Chicago inherited that history. So this would be a nice way to just fill in the middle of the North. The North is pretty close together. You'd add another team right there in the middle and be a good team to add, more historic team to add. And finally, moving on to the East, I would add Connecticut or Hartford, take your pick. Something up there in the North between Boston and New York. Boston and New York currently have a lot of players, especially on practice squads. They're 2 of the best teams in the league any given year. And there's also a lot of college teams in Boston right now, a lot of club teams up in the New York and Boston area. So there's no shortage of players in the Northeast, and I think a 3rd MLQ team would support that area nicely. Something I would also like to mention is how to format this type of season structure. So with 6 teams, I would do something similar to how the North Division did when they had 6 teams a couple years ago. And I would split it into 2 halves. So in the East here, you would have Ottawa, Boston, and Connecticut in kind of a northern East, and then New York, Washington, and Charlotte in a southern East. And how this would work is, let's take the New York Titans, for example. New York would play Washington and Charlotte in the typical 3-game series, 1 home, 1 away. That's 6 games right there. Same with all the other teams. Then what would happen is there'd be 2 events where every team attends. You would have the Super Series, and then you'd also have the Division Championship, in this case, the East Division Championship. And one side would get to host one of each. So say the northern half hosted the Super Series, then the southern half would host the Division Championship. How the Super Series would work now, every team would attend, and you would play 2 games against each of the teams that you don't normally play. So take New York, they would play 2 games against Ottawa, 2 games against the Forge, and 2 games against Connecticut. That gets you to 12 games total, because you've got 6 from these 3 teams and 6 from these 2 teams. 6 plus 6 is 12. So you still have a 12-game normal season, and you get to play every team in your division. And it'd be 6 games in that Super Series weekend, which is what teams do anyway for the Super Series. So it's not like it'd be adding anything extra. Now, that's only 3 events. We could add 1 more event because you would have a home series, an away series, the Super Series, and then the East Division Championship, or the North or the South Division Championship. Take the East, though. Let's say the Super Series was held in Washington, then let's hold the East Division Championship in Boston, per se, and it'd be pretty much the same structure to how the North Division Championship was structured a few years ago, where the top 2 teams play a 3-game series for the title, and the other 4 teams battle it out in a little mini bracket to decide who's 3rd and 4th from that division and who would qualify for champs. So yeah, I would add Oklahoma to the south, Indianapolis to the north, and Connecticut to the east, rounding out our first of our 3 expansion concepts here today. Okay, moving on to our second of our 3 concepts, and we're going to be bringing in a new division, but it's actually an old one. I'm going to bring back the West Division. The West Division was in play in Major League Quadball from 2016 to 2018, and they started out with 4 teams here. You can see the San Francisco Argonauts, the Los Angeles Guardians, the Phoenix Soul, and the Salt Lake City Hive. Phoenix would later relocate to Boise, and then the division would be dissolved at the end of 2018 due to travel concerns. But let's bring them back here in 2025. And we would then have a 20-team league, 4 divisions with 5 teams each, and the divisions would actually look pretty similar as to how they are now. Here's the North. It'd be Minneapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Toronto. Moving over to the South, Kansas City Stampede, the Austin Outlaws, the San Antonio Soldados, the Houston Legends, and the New Orleans Curse. Over to the East, same as normal, the Ottawa Black Bears, the Boston Forge, the New York Titans, the Washington Admirals, and the Charlotte Aviators. And then in the West, like I mentioned, the San Francisco Argonauts, the Los Angeles Guardians, the Phoenix Soul, the Salt Lake City Hive, and the Boise Grays. You'd have 5 teams in each of the 4 divisions, and I think this would set up for a pretty fun playoffs where you'd have to retweak a couple of things, but what I'd have is the number 1 team would automatically qualify for the main bracket. Say it's San Francisco in this case. They would automatically qualify for the quarterfinals at champs, and then I'd have the 2 and the 3 seeds, say it's Los Angeles and Phoenix, they would get to qualify for the play-ins to try and grab one of those last 4 spots. And just to expand on that playoff point one more time, here's kind of how I'd structure it. Here'd be your division winners. Say it's New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and San Antonio. They would automatically get a bye. This would be the main bracket at MLQ Champs. So like normal, you would only have to win 3 series in order to become the champion. And then this is what the play-ins would look like. So say it's like Boston and Washington from the east, Minneapolis and Cleveland from the north, Los Angeles and Phoenix from the west, and then Kansas City and Houston from the south. And how the play-ins would work now is it would be win 2 games before you lose 2 games. Very simple concept. So if you're Boston here, you'd have to beat Cleveland and then beat the winner of Los Angeles, Houston, and then you're in. Ignore all of this. There would not be a game here. You win 2, you're in. That would give us a spot here and a spot here. That's 2 spots in the upper bracket. And then if you lose a game, you would fall to the lower bracket, but you still have a chance. Like let's say Phoenix loses their first round game against Kansas City, you'll drop to the lower bracket and you still got to win 2 games. So you beat the loser of this match, say it's Minneapolis, Phoenix beats Minneapolis, and then would beat 1 more opponent, then they would qualify. So you'd get a spot here and a spot here. That'd be 4 teams that would qualify for this bigger bracket. This would be the main bracket at champs. It would play out just as normal. Quarterfinal series, semifinal series, and the finals. And I think that'd be pretty fun to do for this concept. Before we get to our last concept, let me hop in here really quick and say, please subscribe to Snapshot. If you're enjoying this kind of content or other kinds of content that you've seen on my channel, then please subscribe. It only takes a moment and it really helps me out a lot. Moving into our third and final concept, it's a major one. We've got a league-wide expansion where there's going to be 4 divisions of 8 teams each. That's 32 teams in all of Major League Quadball. Here is the map, and there's a lot going on in this map. I've got a lot of placeholder logos, but there's also some old MLQ team logos and a couple other cases that we will touch on as we go through. So first up is going to be the East. There's 6 teams in this division that currently play in MLQ. That's the Toronto Raiders, the Ottawa Black Bears, the Boston Forge, the New York Titans, the Washington Admirals, and the Charlotte Aviators. With that, I would also add the Rochester Whiteout. They used to play in MLQ. They last played their last season in 2023. So I would bring them back as the 7th member of the East. And I would also bring back that Connecticut team that we keep talking about. And this would round out a nice 8-team East division to start our 32-team league. Moving on to the North, there's 5 teams in this division that currently play in the league. Minneapolis Monarchs, the Detroit Innovators, the Cleveland Riff, the Chicago Prowl, and the Kansas City Stampede, who I'm moving up from the South Division to the North. I think it fits a little bit better because I'm adding some more Central teams as well. The Indianapolis Intensity are back. I'm adding a team in St. Louis, and I'm adding a team in Nashville. Those are big cities. They've got a lot of teams in other major sports leagues, and I think if we had the infrastructure to support it, they'd be able to support some nice teams, and they'd be better travel partners for Kansas City as well. That's the North Division. Moving on to the South, it's going to take up more of the geographic South in the U.S. First, I'd add a team in Dallas. Dallas is the second biggest city in Houston, second biggest city in Texas, rather, second to Houston in terms of population, and one of the 4 biggest cities in Texas, along with Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. So it'd be a nice rivalry, instant rivalry with the other Texas teams. You would keep the New Orleans Curse, Outlaws, San Antonio Soldados, and the Houston Legends, of course. And then it'd add teams in Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Miami. I think it'd be fun to have teams in Florida. I know there's been a scene in Florida and been a scene in Atlanta before in terms of quadball. So the infrastructure was there at some point, and I'm sure it could come back, and that'd be a good 8-team South Division. And finally, the West. We'll start with the 5 teams that used to comprise the MLQ West. That's Boise, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Salt Lake. And then I would add 2 teams from the WCQ. That's Western Championship Quadball. That's another summer league that currently plays. I would add the Northern Lights, which is a team based up in the Seattle area in Washington. And then this is the Colorado Torrent, who I would add to the league as well. And then I would also add a team in Las Vegas, because that's another big market. They could definitely hold a team if there was quadball infrastructure over there. And I think this would be a nice 8-team West Division. Of course, all that said, the MLQ is a great league, a great 15-team league right now. And we've explored a lot of fun concepts today. But of course, the MLQ would be nothing without these 15 amazing teams that we have right here. Thank you so much for watching Snapshot. I had a lot of fun making these expansion concepts, and I've got a lot more fun videos coming up on this channel. If you missed my last video on a brief history of the Austin Outlaws, you'll be able to find that on screen now. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It helps out my channel a lot. But that's all I've got for now. So until next time, Jackson Vaughn, signing off.